Like to tell people, just being here on the ground, like we're probably safer here in Africa than we are in the United States. And the point I make about it is that nobody is over here blowing up schools, maiming each other because of car accidents or anything like that. Those things happen daily in the United States. You have to be careful and concerned about yourself as a black person in America. But if somebody else is always telling you you can't do this because your skin is too dark, because you aren't smart, because you don't have money, that's crazy. That's mental slavery. Yes, well, it's because the education system here is oppressive, just like it is in America. It's an oppressive education system. When you're teaching people to learn languages that are not their first language, their native tongue, that's oppressive. When you're not teaching people about their possibilities and the countless opportunities that are out there, you're oppressing them into basically a one-track mindset. And that one-track mindset is going to have you thinking you need to take that education and go get a job, a cookie-cutter job, doing something that somebody else is telling you what to do all the time, telling you when you can go to the bathroom, when you can take a break, how much you're going to make, right? So it limits your possibilities. And if you stay in that job all your life, your possibilities have been shrunk down to what somebody else thinks you can do. The definition, practical definition of Pan-Africanism is understanding that Africa is linked in history, no matter what. All these places didn't even used to be divided like this. It was divided by Europeans into small segments, and they gave them names. So all the names of the African countries didn't even used to exist a long time ago, right? We know Kemet, we know Mali, the old Mali kingdom. We know those bigger places that used to have more land, and they were chopped down during the European invasions. So for us, understanding that, we need to understand that Africa is one land, one continent, with a lot of ethnic groups, and that all those ethnic groups can come together. We don't all have to have the same tongue. We don't all have to have the same traditions. We can respect one another's traditions and ethnic cultures, but we are one based on the history.
Welcome on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Please briefly introduce yourself to the people watching you for the first time.
Sure. My name is Oluremi Saso. I am a global business owner. I am actually bicontinental, right? I consider myself bicontinental, meaning that I do live in Senegal, but I also go back and forth to the United States every 2 months, depending on my work and what I have to do, if I have to go in for events. I just left from an amazing event, Grambling State University's homecoming, which is very important to us in the United States. When you go to a historically black college or university, homecoming is one of the best, events. So what I do is I go back and forth. I am a person who helps people turn their passion and purpose into a viable nonprofit organization. That's what I do through business. I do it wherever I am, so I consider myself geographically free, meaning that I don't have to be anywhere. I can be anywhere in the world and do the work that I do and still impact my clients. It's important for us to learn how to navigate this world and our space. And so for me right now, that is the beautiful Senegal, right? I live in Dakar. Today we are here in the beautiful Saly, right? Saly is right by the beach. It's a beautiful area, very quaint, very quiet. And I like to impact people. My motto is impact over impress, because I think we've spent decades and years and years and years of, trying to look like something or look like somebody else and that type of thing. But we are not here to impress. We are here to impact people everywhere we go. Coming back to Africa is very important for many of us because we want to know who we are in a very rooted way. We want to know the deep structure, African culture that we come from. It's not enough anymore just to be looking at your ancestry and finding out where you came from, but we need to know on the ground floor what that looks like, how that culture feels. For me, moving to Africa is also about freedom. It's about sovereignty. It's about mental sovereignty, physical sovereignty, also economic sovereignty, being able to get up and feel free on a regular basis. And I don't think people from the United States really understand what that is, especially if you're from African descent, unless you are able to come to Africa, put your feet on the ground here and really understand how how you can relax on a soul level.
Now, one thing that I really want us to do is to go back to the beginning of your story, and you even finding Africa and finding yourself, like you mentioned. How did that journey started for you?
Finding Africa for me started a long time ago. I have always been interested in history, a student of history. I actually studied African American studies in college after my other years in higher education administration. So my PhD, which I started in African studies, I did not finish. I finished the majority of it and decided to become a business owner. So at 26 years old, I became a business owner, but my thirst for knowledge never stopped. I started a business right during my PhD program, quit the PhD program, and went full-fledged into business. So that first business was an African hair braiding business. And so some of the things that I learned through my family, some of the things that we do maintain in America are things like cultural traditions, braiding, some dancing. So I always was interested in dance. I started dancing in second grade, 7 years old. And so I became a dancer. I became a dance instructor. I became a dance studio owner. And through that thirst for knowledge, I basically have interacted with people from all over Africa, from Guinea, Senegal, Gambia, Gabon, Cameroon, all over. So for me, it was just an interest in African culture.
So what was the first African country you visited?
The first African country I visited was Guinea, because my love for Guinea and Guinea dance started a long time ago. I fell in love with Guinea West African dance. I became a West African dance instructor, and I had my own dance company. I had people from Les Ballets Africains and Les Merveilles d'Afrique that were part of my growing up process in the dance, arena. And I was impacted early on by people like Papa Chemical Sano, who ended up becoming my father-in-law, and people like Yamusa Suma, people like Mustafa Bengura, people like Yusuf Kumbasa, people like Muminatu Kamara. So they were all my teachers when I was in my 20s. And I just fell in love with Guinea, and Guinea dance. And so that's how I got to Guinea. I came first in 2018 and loved the culture. I already knew people there. My ex-husband, who's still a friend of mine, Mamadi Sano, an amazing dance teacher. His dad, was a heavy impact on my life as a dancer, as a young dancer. And so he also was one of my teachers. But just knowing people there, having a soft landing, you and I talked about that, knowing somebody and knowing people when you get to a place is very important. Being able to arrive and then feel comfortable where you are, even though it's somewhere where you have never been. And so creating those spaces, and for someone to have created that space for me, is very important.
Now, why did you leave though? Because
why did I leave Guinea?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Guinea, I still love Guinea. I was there for 2 years. I lived there for 2 years. I did a lot of work with Les Merveilles d'Afrique, which is one of the companies there, one of the dance companies. But Guinea's infrastructure is very difficult, and people there know that. I've interacted with a lot of people in the culture, in dance, in the theater, people who are just everyday people. I interacted with the business sector because I actually got my business license in Guinea. But I left because the infrastructure needs to be developed a little bit more. And the business that I do, which is teaching people how to start their nonprofits from ground up, I do it from my home, and being able to have the peace of mind to develop that business out as an online edutech business was a little bit difficult in Guinea. It's a cash culture. Beautiful culture in regards to dance and drumming and music and coming back every year, but a little more difficult in terms of business infrastructure.
So at what point did you decide to come to Senegal?
I decided to come to Senegal a year ago because when I visited Senegal for the first time, it was so beautiful and calm. And so my spirit, most people know I'm pretty zen, and I like calmness. I don't like chaos. I don't function well with chaos. Business is hard to do when you have a bunch of stuff going on all the time and a bunch of fires always to put out. And so that's what my experience had been in Guinea. People know that,
In Senegal?
If they see this, Senegal is totally different. Senegal is calm. I think we need a bridge. Coming from the United States, we need a bridge that allows us to kind of be here, because that helps with sustainability. I know people who have come and moved to Africa and gone right back home because they feel like it's easier.
Really?
Senegal, yeah, Senegal is like the bridge because it allows us to be able to navigate. You know, if you need to use a debit card, you can use a debit card. You don't always have to go swipe and get cash, which can be difficult for people who are not used to that. The language barrier is about the same because it's Francophone country, but you know, that's something that we have to get over. Americans have to learn language, and we don't have that, so we need to lift our leadership lid in that regard.
Now, it's been how many, 1 year living in Senegal?
Yes.
What has been your experience, ups and downs, even settling in here in Senegal?
So, ups and downs have been interacting with people and maybe thinking that people were, you know, true to their word and having a little deception going on, you know. So that's one, and that's everywhere, you know, it's everywhere. So we got to get real with it. But beyond that, just really getting to know places and people and things that you need on a regular basis yourself. I like it. I like Dakar because where I live in Dakar, right close to the water, every single day, my view from my living room and my desk is the ocean. So, and I can walk to the grocery store. I can use my debit card. I don't have to have a car here if I don't want one. And so, yeah, the differences have been just having that peace of mind. The difficulty, again, has been mostly language barrier. That's it for me in Dakar. Everything else I can navigate on my own.
Now, you embarking on this journey, I always like to go back to the US a bit, you know, back to your environment and everything, and because I've interviewed a lot of people, and normally when I asked of what their family and friends thought about them moving and embarking on this journey, it's always very interesting what they have to say. How was that for you when it came upon you to embark on this journey? How did your family then react to even your parents and stuff like that?
Well, so at the time my mother was still alive. She passed away last year. But so we have a lot going on in terms of family dynamics in the United States. My mother didn't really, I couldn't say she didn't have an opinion, but we have some brokenness in our family structure. So I didn't get to hear her opinion. My dad, he was, you know, like many other people, like, be safe. Daddy, if you watch this, you know. So people are like, you know, most people in the United States like, are you safe? You know what I mean? But you are safe in Africa. What I tell people, especially here on the ground, we're probably safer here than we are in the United States. And they just have to come and see that, you know. Nobody's over here blowing up schools and maiming people and knocking people out because they have an accident. I've seen 2 or 3 car accidents in front of my house. Nobody is getting out, beating each other up and killing each other because of an accident, but it happens all the time in the United States. So people's normal reaction is just the fear is basically of not knowing. They just don't know. They don't have the lived experience. Like to tell people, just being here on the ground, like we're probably safer here in Africa than we are in the United States. And the point I make about it is that nobody is over here blowing up schools, maiming each other because of car accidents or anything like that. Those things happen daily in the United States. You have to be careful and concerned about yourself as a black person in America. I have to be concerned about my son as a black mom in America every day, you know, and so safety is relative. And so that was pretty much most people's concern.
Hearing you say that as an African guy who dream to go to a land like America, to tell me that Africa is more safe than America, it's just does not compute. You know, let's just dive a little bit into it, if you don't mind, on that kind of what happens in the US, what created that kind of unsafe environment, and why it has gone to the point where it's not safe to live there anymore. You're better off leaving that behind.
Yeah, so America has a history. I mean, people know that, but I think the images and the imagery and the media on both sides of the water, they really, really beef up the image of America. America's image and what America is not congruent. And so what it is congruent with is its own history, and America has to face its own history. And the people there who are creating all the chaos for people of color, they are not willing to look at their own history. And that is as simple as it gets. The history of 400 years, I know y'all just celebrated 400 years in Ghana, 2019. Actually, everywhere should have been celebrating that, all the African countries, like 400 years plus of us African people being brought to America and the Caribbean and other places, Brazil, through the transatlantic slave trade. That is a real history. And the people in America don't want to deal with reality. We have a lot of people who are in leadership positions, in government positions, political positions, who literally refuse to look at the fact that their history is what's making this happen.
Why are they refusing to do that?
They're ignorant. They're ignorant. Literally, we have ignorant people in leadership, and that's not it's not an insult. It's really a literal fact that they are culturally ignorant. The educational systems do not make it easy for people to learn about real history, like cultural history. And, what makes this person unique? What makes somebody from Uganda unique? What makes somebody from Senegal unique? What makes somebody from Ghana unique? What makes them unique is who they are ethnically. And so that is not taught in American schools. We have a whitewashing of education. It's been that way for a very long time, starting with the slave trade. And so because they haven't outgrown that ignorance, then the ignorance is catching up. You see the January 6th, things that happen where people are at the Capitol trying to take over the Capitol. So it's just ignorance, ignorance on steroids.
Now, I feel like what I grew up knowing what America is not like that anymore. I've seen a lot of things on TV, like seeing homelessness and stuff like that in the US, sometimes even among our own ethnicity. And then when you tell these people to move to Africa, they just still prefer to live in that kind of environment in America. Why do you think that is? It's hard understanding it.
Well, because people have been sold a very, very big lie for a very, very long time. It's like when you have something on repeat, and that's the image and the idea that people have, this is what they believe. We need to be challenging people's current belief systems about America and about all these other places, Europe, about dominance, about cultural dominance in general. Why do we feel that because somebody else is in America that they're better, they do better, they have more? Maybe opportunity is there in a way where because our foreparents paid the dues for what's happening now, but we have never gotten a reward for what they did. So there's a schism that's created in people's mind about what is available in America. Opportunity is there, yes, right? But we paved the way for that, and we should be getting a reward for that. And because we aren't getting the reward for it, we have systems and government systems for things like reparations, right? When the government is refusing to give reparations, refusing to talk about it, refusing to put real policies in place, this is where your question comes into being. We need to come back. We have a place. A big continent called Africa. We have tons of countries in Africa that we all come from, our motherland, and we can come back to a soft landing. And it's important for us to see that we can create our own reparations. Reparations is repairing that history. And instead of waiting for someone else to repair it, we need to repair it ourselves. We need to take our resources, take our knowledge and information and bring it back to the motherland, because that schism that people have in their minds is very important, and to continue it really feeds European domination. It feeds it because people feel like what they do is better, what their systems are better, their likes, whatever their likes and interests are better. All that, and it's not true.
Now, one of the things that you do is to help people come to the continent, through your traveling and tour movements. Why did you start that initiative? And speak on that a little bit, if you don't mind.
I actually have two businesses. One is called Spark and Flow with Oluremi LLC, where I help people turn their passion and purpose into a viable nonprofit organization, learning how to set up a business infrastructure and learning how to write grants so that they can fund their ideas. That's one. The second one is teaching people about cultural awareness through global travel. And so that teaching about cultural awareness through global travel is very important because that is the flow side of what I do. The spark is sparking the ideas, and how do we take those ideas and put them into full manifestation and get them funded. The flow is how do you flow globally with that information. You should be able to go and navigate anywhere in the world. And so the reason why I wanted to start bringing people to Africa is to show them on the ground what Africa is and what they can do and how many opportunities are here, and do it in an affordable way, you know, where they can get beyond their own head and the media barrage about, you know, how it's impossible. It's not impossible to come to Africa. It costs less than, I heard Diallo say this on his interview, right? It costs less than a pair of tennis shoes that people spend their money on. And it's unfortunate that people still emphasize materialism in America because they buy chains, they buy sneakers, they buy clothes that cost more than my trip to Africa. And I come back and forth to Africa every 2 months or so. So people are like, oh my gosh, you're always in Africa, you're always coming back. How do you do that? It really costs less than what they're spending on handbags and shoes.
How do we stop this mindset that, I mean, look, other ethnicities are equally as affected, but it looks like it's more dominant in the black community, where we almost create a hype and then a whole thing out of it, where if you're a child and you go to school with just a fila shoes, you get mocked and bullied because of it. So it's been built into you to grow up to just chase all this material stuff. How do we begin to stop that trend from happening, you know?
Well, it has to stop first in the home. Like parents have to let their children experience things and maybe emphasize experiences over materialism, like taking their kids out to do things and taking them to see different things and, you know, opening up their minds. All children have imaginations, so opening up their minds about places and experiences versus things, because the things is what is ruining people. You know, they wake up wanting to have this because their friend has that, wanting to have this because this school has that and this school doesn't. You know, what about the uniqueness that you bring because of who you are? So you don't need a piece of clothing to tell you who you are. You know, my clothing just basically says, this is what I like, these are the colors that I like, but I don't have to have a specific brand to do that. As a matter of fact, I want to be the brand. People know that. I had a clothing line that was in 70 boutiques at one point because I created them from my own hands, mixed denim, right? And so teaching children that, how to make clothes, how to make your own clothes and put your own brand name on there so that they can be inspired and impacted by the feeling of doing something that has their name on it versus somebody else's. So it wouldn't matter if it's Fila, Nike, or anything else because you created it, you know.
Now, you know, how do we, I think I spoke to someone, I don't know if behind cameras, that how do we begin to create that producing kind of people, not consumers, but to create people who produce. What kind of education or upbringing do you think we have to give to our young ones to be able to grow up to be like, oh, I want to create my own fashion brand, rather than be a customer of a fashion brand that does not benefit them if they buy from that fashion brand?
Well, you have to plant the seed of entrepreneurship early, showing children how they can do things like sewing. Like we all learned how to sew at an early age. So sewing, on the computer, maybe designing. If you want to create a shoe, go design a shoe online. You can do that now. And teaching children how to do those things, you know, in the home, in activities after school, and even in school, like letting them have that hands-on activity. By the way, this is something that you can do with nonprofit organizations. And so you can have a special interest in teaching about entrepreneurship, start an organization to do that, learn how to build that organization, learn how to fund that organization, and then go impact a whole lot of kids. You can even take that same organization and travel globally. Now you're impacting kids in Africa and kids in America. Then you bring those groups together. You know, there are ways to have groups come over from Africa and have groups come from America and visit and do some cultural exchange. So the sky is the limit, you know. with that type of stuff. But it has to start in the home first.
I like that. Now you've been, you're very close with Diallo. I came to find out, and he's been someone who has been really doing great. You know, one of the things initiative in Ghana was because of his, not just his complete idea, but his suggestions and things like that. That's why Beyond the Return came into be, Year of Return, and he's doing amazing.
Yes.
So I heard as doing amazing here in Senegal. Can we dive a little bit into your projects and things that you're working on here on the continent?
Sure. So what I do mostly here in Senegal is the cultural awareness trips. So cultural awareness through global travel. We just finished a trip September 23rd, which was my birthday. And we had a group over. I love to take them to see Gorée Island, the African Renaissance Monument, which, by the way, was something that impacted people all over the world because that was for African families. It was the man, woman, and child, showing the strength of African families everywhere. And so I like to, do those type of things. It's part of my business plan to be able to do that on an annual basis. I do want to build it out into something where people can come, and when they're here, not just be in a tourist frame of mind, but also how they can come learn about land ownership, how to buy a house here, how to bring groups themselves if that's what they want to do. And in Guinea, we actually started that. My trips in Guinea 2 years in a row included banking. So we had the bankers from UBA and other banks come and talk to the people who traveled in about banking, starting an account in Africa. How do you buy land if you want to invest in Guinea's new infrastructure? And so we want to continue to build on that seed because I know you referenced Diallo. Diallo's doing an amazing job in Ghana. He's a forerunner. I consider a forerunner, building houses, building community centers, building libraries, having a street named after the project that he's doing. I remember when Diallo called me and was telling me about his project early on. The seed was in his head. He hadn't done any of it. And he was looking for investors, and he was saying, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to engage my core. I'm going to, do some heavy, deep-seated thinking about what I know I'm here to do. And every single thing that he said, he has manifested. And it hasn't been easy, by the way. Like, those things are not easy. But for us to have the ideas and work hard to do it. It's what I'm doing in Senegal in one sense, because I have to have somewhere that I know I can plant the seed and that is sustainable. So purchasing land, making sure that we have, relationships with the banking industry here, making sure that people, when they come, they see things beyond the hotel, beyond just the sightseeing. They get a chance to go engage in the culture, so.
Now, I think Diallo said this, and I'm referring so much because one of the things he said is what you're saying here. Like, we, some African Americans move back and they just create meet and group among themselves, and that they don't necessarily go into the local communities to kind of, there's a word for it, to associate themselves or live together. They just isolate themselves in the cities and live in the apartment building without having to go into all this, why do you think that is, and what can we begin to do differently to really make it a different, not just relocate like the other ethnicities does?
So that's a good question. I think people do it everywhere. When people come from Africa to the United States, they do the same thing. They kind of want to be somewhere comfortable. So you kind of understand it on that level. But I think that the intercultural engagement is what we need, because it helps you learn to navigate the spaces differently. It helps you learn about other people. I actually have friends from Kenya that are here in Dakar that help me because they know English, but they also know French because they took time to learn French. And, they know from living here and working with World Vision and other agencies like that, then I can learn from them. I have people that I know from Dakar that I can learn from. I have people who are, different ethnic groups that are all in Senegal that we all learn from one another. So I think it's important for us to kind of inspire people to do that, to reach out, branch out. There's a lady who's doing an amazing job. I just met her, Monifa. She owns a place called The Third. She's from United States, and she's been in Senegal for 5 years. She and her husband is from Benin. But they set up a place kind of similar to this, by the water, where people can come. It's like a WeWork space. And so people can come, there's Wi-Fi there, it's right on the water. They also have a restaurant, so you can eat a meal, you can go do your work there and get out of the house, meet people, interact with people. They have live music on the weekends. They also have a physical workout space, so you can do yoga, you can do, Afrobeat classes and things like that. So those are the type of things that we can set up in these various places to help people interact and engage,
Now, I know that's not the only business opportunity that has been identified and executed. You've been here, in Africa, in several African countries. What would you say you've identified business-wise that people watching this video can actually embark on a journey to identify how to, capitalize on all these businesses? And what business do you think it has the potentials?
Well, what I would suggest for people is anything dealing with technology, meaning like computer technology, financial technology, educational technology, because anything you can do on the computer, on the internet, is something that you can do from anywhere. And it also is something that becomes sustainable. Because one of the things I've watched a lot of YouTube videos on people who have moved to Africa and then they've been here for a while and they had to go back home because what they're doing is not sustainable where they are. So if you build a business and you build it online and it's something that people can access online, that to me is where they need to start. It needs to be something that they can do with technology.
I like that. Let's just give an advice. It could be a general advice to people who have the interest on coming to Africa or relocating. Something you wish you knew before coming, what they should look out for and stuff like that. 3 advices, if you don't mind.
Okay, starting with my most recent ill occurrence, I would say one thing to look out for is to make sure that you are always aware of your surroundings. It's very safe in Africa, but at the same time, I think we need to put things and locate things where they are in regard to what do I call it? Petty crime, right? Like grabbing a phone. I just recently had my phone stolen right out of my hands, right? And that was something that was unfortunate circumstance. But I also know that it happens in France. It happens in, Asian countries and other places because people really are just trying to get something to make quick money on. So that's one thing that I wish people would have kind of like told me a little bit more about, to watch out for this, watch out for that. And the other things are understanding just how to navigate in cultures where maybe like Guinea, where it's more of a cash culture, knowing sometimes that ahead of time that ATMs can run out of money, because in America they never run out of money. I have never seen an ATM in America run out of money. So when you are somewhere and living somewhere and you're like, oh my gosh, or you need food or you need this, you have to know, how to, sparingly make sure that you always have some change and all that kind of stuff, because sometimes the ATM is not working, and that type of things. Those are little, those are small things. You can learn to get over those type of things, but it is good to know ahead of time, So one more is, I think one thing, preparing yourself language-wise in a country where language might be a barrier. So just kind of getting started ahead of time. I took 6 years of French, 6 years of French in school, and I still don't speak French. Why? Because we don't practice French. And American education is rote education. Rote meaning like they teach you for the moment, but there's nothing that makes you keep that in your mind, or you don't use it. So, yeah, so that's another one. The third one would be to absolutely practice the languages that you learn while you're in school. I have 6 years of French, 8 years of Spanish, and no conversational language outside of English because we just simply don't use it.
Let me ask you this. What do you think about mental slavery?
Mental slavery? Mental slavery is one of the biggest dynamics in our time, period. Mental slavery is what's happening right now, where people at home and abroad think that America is the best place to be. And even the president in the United States just recently said he feels like all countries are looking for America to lead and looking to America to lead, but absolutely not, right? That is mental slavery, because the reality is America cannot lead anything because it's not leading itself. It's not leading itself in terms of really being true to the nature and the history of what has happened and taken place. If America would do that, America could get better and America could grow. But America is a youth in human history. America is small in human history. You know, other countries have been around for eons, and America still will not learn and get off of that elementary knowledge of thinking that other people are less than and some people are more than. That's elementary thinking. You know, so mental slavery is extremely important, because what happens, it limits people from opportunity. It limits them from seeing their own possibilities. Possibilities are limitless. You can never run out of possibilities. Even if you've had the most terrible circumstance, you can always overcome that. So to know that, you have to be free to think it. But if somebody else is always telling you, you can't do this because your skin is too dark, because you aren't smart, because you don't have money, that's crazy. That's mental slavery, and it's on repeat.
Akon said something like, if every African American in America right now should take their money out, their investment out, if it's a business, come do the same business here in Africa and bring all their money here, economy would collapse overnight.
Overnight. Overnight. Not only their money, their effort. Effort is all you need to make something happen in life. You can take that same effort and do it anywhere, right? Jay-Z said a long time ago, put me anywhere on God's green earth and I'll triple my worth. That's because he knows inside that he has the gumption to get up and do the same thing he did in America anywhere. You could put him anywhere on God's green earth and he will triple his worth. And so Akon is right. I love Akon. I love what he's doing with his the modern city here in Senegal, trying to help people see that we can create our own Wakandas, right? He had a recent interview on EYL with Rashad and Troy, two people. Well, I know Rashad, I don't know Troy, but he had a recent interview on Earn Your Leisure where he was talking at length about creating the city that he's creating, some of the obstacles, some of the wins. But he's right. If we took our money and our effort and just said, hey, let's leave this American experiment and let's go back to Africa and build where we know we are wanted, because this is where our ancestral land is, America will be over.
Now, it's hard, as I said. Other ethnicities, you don't have to tell them to come to Africa.
Right.
They see the opportunity and just jump right into it.
That's true.
Come and take over the monopoly when it comes to restaurants, when it comes to hotels, when it comes to others. But then somehow our people, we always have to beg. I've seen other ethnicities who are flooding into the continent. The Chinese is flooding in, the Lebanese, literally every single shop you see in my country, a coffee shop or a co-working space, is literally owned by a Lebanese, right? But for some reason, it's hard convincing our people to come and capitalize on this business opportunities. Why do you think that is? And also, what can we do differently to begin to get our people to come? Now, before you say that, I've had someone who said that they would rather live in poverty in America or Canada than to embark on a journey to prosperity in Africa. Speak on that a little bit, let's see.
Whoever said that probably has not been here. If they have been here, then maybe they needed a different business model. But what I think people need to have is the courage to really understand opportunity in Africa, because other ethnic groups, they do the same thing everywhere. You have people, Chinese people will start a restaurant anywhere. They will do what Jay-Z said, put me anywhere on God's green earth and I'm gonna start a Chinese restaurant and people are gonna come. They have the same business model everywhere. Give people enough food, right? Make it, they have food that does not cost a lot. So they do a lot of fried rice. Rice is cheap, with something mixed vegetables and some protein in it, and people will buy it over and over and over. Chinese people have a model that works for them and they use it. They do restaurants, they do donut shops, they do nail shops, they do a lot of that stuff. So we as a people need to find out what business model works for us and what we can do wherever we are on God's green earth. That is something that needs to be taught. It's something that needs to be shown beyond the textbook. We need to show people how entrepreneurship, what it looks like. Like if you want to start a restaurant, let's dominate the restaurant business. I just saw one of Wodamaya's interviews, and he was talking to a lady that came from UK and lives in Gambia. She started a Jamaican restaurant because her lineage is partly Caribbean. And so she came there. She said she has peace there, total peace. She started a restaurant. It's amazing. People love the food, you know, because the cultural connection is already there. The palate is very similar from the Caribbean to Africa. So we need to learn how to create these business models and really make them come alive in Africa, you know, for Africa to prosper like we have these other places. Lebanese people are in Guinea in a big way. They are in the furniture industry, they're in the restaurant industry, they are in the tourism industry, they own houses on the islands, so they go set up shop wherever they want to be. We need to have that same sense of freedom. We need to feel and know that we can go set up wherever we want because it's our right to do. We are the progenitors of this earth. This is the fact. And we need to be able to feel comfortable moving around and moving about and setting up our business interests wherever we are. So the answer is, what can we do to make these things come alive? And one of them is for people who do have access to money or funding, or if they have money that they just saved up and they want to invest in Africa, one of the things we need to do is create spaces where people can learn about business ownership. So creating incubators, business incubators, where people can learn about business ownership. You can create a business incubator here so much cheaper than you can in the United States because land is less expensive here. Purchasing or building a building to have those type of things and being able to bring folks over and train them or train people here. Van Holmes was just talking about this on another one of those versions of EYL. And it's important for us to reference other people's shows so people can go back and look at that information. It's an amazing hour-long conversation that Van Holmes was having with Rashad and Troy about the $100 million that was granted to him from Jeff Bezos, one of the richest people in the world. How often does that happen to a black man? He talked about how it happened, him just being in the right place at the right time, some of the key people that led him to being able to get that opportunity, and what he's doing with it, helping impact businesses. He said that he's been in the nonprofit space for a very long time, helping people on the justice end, helping in the political realm, but now he's just now coming to learn about business and ownership, and that the economic arm is what we really need to get better at, and being able to impact other businesses, being able to open up opportunities for others to do business, creating whole incubators where you can train people on how to start a business, how to grow a business, how to sustain a business, how to assess a business, whether or not it's doing well or not, the viability of the business. So those things are things that we can create and should create for ourselves, and then go do them wherever we want in the world, because other people and other cultures are doing that already. And we don't need to be looking at and comparing ourselves to people all the time. We need to simply garner our own energy, make the things happen that we want to see. If you're interested in restaurants, do restaurants. If you're interested in computers, do computers. If you're interested in videography, photography, do that. Create a media space that, like we were talking earlier, we need to connect all of our media, all of the media, social media, regular, print media, journalism. We need to have collective voice around this world so that if something is not going right for us, we can say, hey, that's not being projected right. This is not what black people look like in Africa. This is not what's happening with black people in America. And guess what? Our channels are going to do it. P. Diddy, he's done that with Revolt TV. He's doing that now. People are creating media spaces. Tyler Perry is doing that, an amazing job at creating his own sovereign spaces that nobody can take away from him, right? So that we can tell our story the way that we need to. We can create the visions that we need to, and then tell the story about those visions that we created with our own media channels.
I like that. Now, while most African Americans and diaspora are learning about entrepreneurship and how to own businesses and go on that trajectory, when you come to Africa, almost like the education system are preparing the youth to be workers rather than to be entrepreneurs. Do you mind speaking on that a little bit?
Yes, well, it's because the education system here is oppressive, just like it is in America. It's an oppressive education system. When you're teaching people to learn languages that are not their first language, their native tongue, That's oppressive. When you're not teaching people about their possibilities and the countless opportunities that are out there, you're oppressing them into basically a one-track mindset. And that one-track mindset is going to have you thinking you need to take that education and go get a job, a cookie-cutter job, doing something that somebody else is telling you what to do all the time, telling you when you can go to the bathroom, when you can take a break, how much you're going to make, right? So it limits your possibilities. And if you stay in that job all your life, your possibilities have been shrunk down to what somebody else thinks you can do, versus learning about entrepreneurship early on in the education system and having a nurturing environment, because the teachers and the school and the infrastructure allows that. Being able to practice that as you grow up. Then when you go to college, you start building a business in college. Some colleges in America are doing this. You have people that go for 2 years and get out of there. They build their business while they're there in a business incubator. They sell their business before they even become a full-blown adult, and they're a millionaire already. So we need to create those same types of educational systems, and we need to take the oppression out of education, even if that means homeschooling your children. You know, we really need to look at that. Educational systems in America and here are both oppressive.
Do you think homeschooling is the solution to this, though?
I don't. I don't, because not enough people have enough full wisdom. I think it can be. Let me say it that way. I think it can be, because some parents are choosing to homeschool their kids and let their kids travel early on, letting their kids see the world early on, letting their kids experience entrepreneurship at 10, 11, 12, 13. Some may not have the skills. You might not be able to homeschool. You might not have the temperament to homeschool. You know, you have to be able to take your time with children and let them grow and let them go through their bumps and bruises. So you can't be frustrated with that. So yeah, some may be able to and some may not be able to. I don't think it's the total answer, but I do think if you had to make a choice beyond letting your kid come up in an oppressive situation where their minds are clamped on what they can do, then yes, homeschool should be an option.
If you are given the chance to really like change something on the continent, you know, that would help for the prosperity of the Black people, African people, what would that be?
Financial technology.
Financial
technology. So we started a project in Guinea 2 years ago where we were teaching people how to use their smartphone. Everybody has a smartphone. And the ones that don't have a smartphone can get a smartphone, because it's something that you can work, earn a little bit of money, and get a phone, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is that we can make these things available through, again, grants, nonprofit organizations working together globally to create prosperity together. And so financial technology, you can learn about investments, you can learn about how to do a business, and you don't even need a computer anymore. You can use your phone to run a full business. You can use your phone for media. You can use your phone to create a YouTube channel. So technology to create financial freedom is very important. FinTech is what they call it in the United States. And that is something that can be done with this small, simple device. So you don't have to have a building. You don't have to have gone to college. You don't have to, all those things that were obstacles before are not obstacles, because YouTube University is something that people are learning anything they need to know on YouTube. You learn how to monetize your videos. You learn how to tell people your story, even the bad part about your situation, and people can learn and grow from it. So that is financial technology, because you've turned that into a video, you've monetized it, you've helped impact other people. And this is what we can teach. This is one of the, to me, financial technology and educational technology are the two things we need to concentrate on most.
I think most Africans are not educated about what the internet is and what you can actually use the internet for. In my country, the internet you use, social media is used more for drama and insulting each other rather than watching tutorials on YouTube, like you mentioned, YouTube University. What can we begin? Like, I mean, educating them is obviously, but why do our people always kind of focus on only the generic part of the internet rather than really diving in to really learn something of substance that can change, you know, their financial status or, you know, their life basically?
It's what you said, mental slavery. I mean, it's what people are oriented to do. So they do it on repeat. They do it in America too. You see all these housewives and all these reality shows, and it's not reality. Who does that? I mean, who goes and only thing they do is get engaged and fight and argue, and it's keeping us distracted from the real things that we can be doing. So I think what we need to do is really create these places and spaces where we train adults and youth, how to use their everyday life and impact someone else and make money while doing it. This is how we turn that around. Reality shows really need to be like this, how we came to Africa, how we made something for ourselves in Africa and other places in the world, and reaching back and grabbing other people. They call that Sankofa, right? So reaching back and teaching that to somebody else and letting them see the way too. So why would I create friction, conflict, and disunity in doing that? Why would I say, oh, that's my show, or this is my content, and it's no need for that, because globally there's enough for everybody. And that's a mindset. You have to know that prosperity and being able to take advantage of opportunities, there's enough for everybody.
Now, I had a conversation with Marcus Garvey Jr. And then I made an example of what one of my guests on the show said about her family saying they would rather stay in Canada. And he almost told me that some people are suffering from mental illness, and then we should consider them as collateral damage because they are no good for the continent. Do you think Africa is for everybody, and some black people actually deserve to be here, or they are rather good in the US rather than come to the continent?
Okay, so first of all, I agree on both sides. And how can you agree on both sides? One, I actually heard Diallo say that too. He said some people don't need to come here. And that's true, because some people are not equipped to come here. So the knowledge base that they need, and the grit and the staying power they need, they don't have it. So if somebody said, oh, Canada is better, or America is better, or I don't need to, whatever their thoughts are is what's leading them, right? So they don't need to be here if they're not going to contribute. You don't need to come and then say, okay, Africa's this, Africa's that. We really do need people here that can make more positive impact in terms of how people see Africa, around the world. And I wouldn't say, I'm not like that. I'm not elitist or anything like that. So I shouldn't say, oh, you can't come and you can't. I don't think that. People can come, they can go wherever they want. But it's more helpful and more instructive if people are coming to add positive to it.
Do you think we are going to lose some people? Your personal opinion. Do you think we are going to lose some people as within the black community that they are of no good? Do you think people like that exist, and we would have to come into,
of course,
an inner understanding that we might have to lose some people?
Yes, yeah, collateral damage. It's there. It's already there. We lose people to drugs. We lose people to gangs and mental slavery around that, what that means. We lose people all the time to just the school system, where people they have a one-track mind because that's how the school has taught them to be, and they can't see anything beyond that box. That's collateral damage. It comes with the territory of oppression and enslavement and those type of things, So yeah, we have a lot of collateral damage.
Now, a lady in Gambia, I interviewed her, and she made mention that you could come to Africa and become rich. I've had people who said they made the most money in their life coming to Africa in just 2 years than they've ever done in their whole life living in Europe. Do you think this narrative is true? If so, what example do you have to give to support that narrative? Well,
hopefully I'm on that trajectory because I just got here, and I think that what it provides for me is peace of mind, enough peace of mind to concentrate. I go off the grid from America, so I'm not on social media as much as I used to be. I used to be very involved with social media because of my dance studio and things like that. But now what I try to do is focus on my business so that I can make that impact and that I can get to those levels of prosperity, because Africa is the place where we can do that. The simple reality is that things don't cost as much to live. It simply does not cost as much to live in Africa, So you can reduce what you have to spend out by living in Africa and looking at the beauty every single day, natural beauty, the ocean, the greenery, the fertility of Africa. You don't have to pay to go see that because it's everywhere. So if you are reducing your expenses and you're able to keep more of what you make, then this is how people get to those levels of richness, And I hope that for all of us, that we can get there.
Now, let's dive a little bit into Senegal. But before we do that, I want to ask you, Ghana was really standing out when it comes to history, enslavement of our people coming back home. Ghanaians are more leading when it comes to that aspect. But for some reason, you didn't move to Ghana, you moved to Senegal. Let's just touch a little bit on that and why you think other people should follow your footsteps and the reasons why you made such decision.
So Ghana, one thing about me, if everybody's doing it, I'm not doing it. That's number one, because I don't have to be, I could be by myself, do whatever I want, and I don't need an amen corner, right? So for me, everybody flocking to Ghana, and I love Ghana. I really love what they're doing. I think I told you that. I love what's happening. I think there's a lot of collective momentum there. I think the openness of the president and the political system and people just wanting people to be there, opening the door and then letting people know that they are welcome, that's important. But at the same time, we have over 50 countries in Africa. We don't all have to be in Ghana. We can be other places, and I choose Senegal because I love the spirit and energy of Senegal. I love the calmness, the water, the nature of the people. There's a lot of history. I recently found out that through my mother's side DNA that we are from the Temne people of Sierra Leone, right? So for me, that is a little closer, right? So I can be in this area and be able to get around to places like Sierra Leone. I also have a friend who's the Minister of Transportation in Liberia. She went to school in the United States, and she's from Liberia, but now she's back in Liberia. So being able to move around this little west side of Africa, is important, and being somewhere where you feel safe and comfortable, all of those things. Now, I've been to Ghana. I love Ghana. I was able to go there for Diallo's Installment. It was an amazing event, an amazing experience. And I've seen all of what he's building there. I have a friend that's building a house there, Erica Bethia. And so for me, I love Ghana. I will always visit Ghana, but everybody doesn't have to be in the same place, and we can all make an impact where we are.
I like that. I kind of sense some Pan-African in you.
Yeah, Pan-African. That's me. Yes, yes.
I always ask, who gave that to you? I think I asked Diallo the same question.
Diallo and I have one person that in common, like Baba Ajay, right? Kwame Ajay Akoto, he was one of our teachers. In my 20s, he was one of the people who, I read his book, Nation House. It was one of the things that was very impactful for me at a young age, because if in your 20s, you're an adult, but you're not really an adult. Yeah, you're still forming. So Nation House was one of the books that I read. Dr. John Henry Clark was a definite teacher of mine. He was a literal teacher of mine. Like when I was in graduate school, we literally got to be at his feet learning and hearing his voice, and he would talk to us in small groups when I was a student at Ohio State University. So for me, those people have been very impactful. Marcus Garvey, one of my favorites, right? John Baldwin, right? One of my favorites. So
James?
It's like, James Baldwin, one of my favorites. So literary, right? Those people I was an English major in college. I was a higher education administration major in my master's. So for me, always being open to hearing history and information about our people and who we are. We learned about, through the writings of Cheikh Anta Diop, who was from here. Right? I live literally walking distance from Cheikh Anta Diop University now. And I used to read about Cheikh Anta Diop when I was in graduate school. So seeing this stuff firsthand now is very, very important. But having that Pan-African mindset, every single person that is from the continent of Africa needs to know that we can do better together. Right? And that's what Pan-Africanism is.
Look, how do one become a Pan-African? And what is a Pan-African? Give me the definition of a Pan-African.
The practical definition of Pan-Africanism is understanding that Africa is linked in history, no matter what. All these places didn't even used to be divided like this. It was divided by Europeans into small segments, and they gave them names. So all the names of the African countries didn't even used to exist a long time ago, right? We know Kemet, we know Mali, the old Mali kingdom. We know those bigger places that used to have more land, and they were chopped down during the European invasions. So for us, understanding that, we need to understand that Africa is one land, one continent, with a lot of ethnic groups, and that all those ethnic groups can come together. We don't all have to have the same tongue. We don't all have to have the same traditions. We can respect one another's traditions and ethnic cultures, but we are one based on the history.
I like that. Now, one thing that I want to, you see how a lot of African Americans, even foreigners, are flooding into Africa, identifying the opportunities. On the other hand, the youth is packing their bags and leaving, saying going to the promised land and stuff like that. Can you speak on that a little bit?
They don't know because they're not being taught what the beauty of being here in Africa is. So I have another professor, Theophile Obenga, right? He was from the Congo. And Professor Obenga used to be good friends with Sheikh Anta Diop. And he basically used to say, you know, Africa, we lay down with diamonds. We go to bed every night with diamonds. This is not new. So understanding and respecting the richness of the soil that we live on is very, very important. Understanding that all the people coming here to take those natural minerals and then export it out, we have that, we grow up with that. So if they knew the gem that they have right here at home, and that every opportunity that we need is right here at home. Now it doesn't mean don't go explore the world. You can go explore the world, just don't think that the world is better than your own home, because we have everything we need right here.
If you do have a final message for anyone who has been watching this right now, it could be people watching from the diaspora, US, Europe, all around the world, what would that message be?
That message would be for us to take a really good look at ourselves and who we are, and learn to respect one another, learn to respect other cultures, learn to respect world history, and learn to acknowledge world history, because that simply is what is going on right now with world wars. We don't need wars, we need peace. And to have peace, you need to have leaders who have an ultimate understanding that every single person's ethnicity is to be respected. That's my message.
I like that. We're almost at the end of the conversation.
So just to wrap up, for me, I think that the most important thing that we can see in our efforts and our collective efforts is that we need to create sustainability in Africa. We need to create, if we are coming and planting seeds and crossing cultures and holding hands to create, we need to be able to create sustainability. And so programs like this, Webnation is important because it helps create that sustainability. These are not one-off programs where you're going to see something happen one time and then not revisit it. We need to revisit. We need to see where people are in their manifestation. We need to see how many people are being affected by the business efforts that we're doing, how many people are affected by the impact of a community center that is built in Ghana, the effect of someone coming home to Liberia and now giving their same leadership that they gave in the United States and planning and development to their own country, right? We need to go back and revisit stories like that. Come back to Senegal and see how far we've gotten with teaching people about coming to Senegal and creating their own spaces for business incubators. And so that to me is something that would be very special if we could do that.
I like that. There's so much knowledge coming out of you, and I wish we can speak forever.
We'll come back. We'll visit again.
We'll definitely have a part two. How do people find you or reach out to you?
I have a website, sparkandflow.biz. So it's spark, SPARKANDFLOW.biz. That is my website. I also have Spark and Flow TV, which is YouTube. My YouTube is not like yours. It's going to get there. I have a baby YouTube, but it's going to get bigger. You know, my plan is to use modern technology to help people understand more about business. So,
and then your email?
Email is sparkandflow with Oluremi. So Spark and Flow, WITHOLUREMI @gmail.
Instagram?
Instagram, Spark and Flow with Oluremi.
All right. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you so much for having me.